My name is Michele Holmes, and I'm here to talk to you about the U.S. High School Diploma Pathway. And I just wanted to share a little bit about myself. I'm Michele Holmes. I am the founder of Homeschool Directive, and I've been in the homeschooling community for over 33 years. I have graduated all 8 of my children. I have 12 grandchildren that are all being homeschooled. My children have chosen to do the university route, so they all went to university. I have some that are done, some that have masters, and some that are still in school. And I have always been interested in helping the homeschooling community, which I know over in the UK, it is the home educators. So I will slip once in a while and say homeschoolers or homeschooling, but I've been in the community running a co-op that focus on high school classes for our teens locally. We would average about 200 students, and then also offering workshops, and then founding Homeschool Directive, all with the goal to help homeschool parents make it all the way to the end of their home education journey and getting their kids ready to launch into adulthood. So I'm here to talk to you about homeschooling high school through the U.S. High School Diploma Pathway. And Homeschool Directive helps home educators around the world use the U.S. High School Diploma Pathway to educate their children at home to prepare them for success after graduation. And so that's what Homeschool Directive does. And so I'm going to start this conversation off with a truth bomb. The truth bomb is that it doesn't matter where you live. Everyone, when they get to this 11, 12, 13 age with their children, they get worried that they're going to mess up their children's future forever. They won't be able to move out of the house and live on their own. And it doesn't make a difference if you're in the US or if you're in the UK or you're just living, in South Africa. We all have these same worries. We're all worried that we're not going to be able to help our children launch into adulthood successfully. And because of these worries, we have these tendencies to revert back to things that are really familiar to us. In the case of everyone here that lives in the UK, it's using the GCSEs and using that system because that's what you know and that's what you're comfortable with. And so that's what we're here today to talk about: home education and thinking about it being alternative education. And in this case, we're talking about using the U.S. High School Diploma Pathway. Now, we're doing these because we want to nurture in our children their passions and their goals. Like I said, if you've been home educating for a very long time, when your kids were 7 and 8, it was fun. You're going to museums, you're doing all of these different activities. But once you get to that age 12, for some reason in our heads, we start shifting things. And we start looking at the GCSEs and all these requirements here in the United States. It's oh, we got to check off all these graduation requirements. So even though we have these different systems, we start losing the sight of the whole reasons behind why we chose this educational pathway to begin with. And that was that we wanted to do education a little bit different in our homes with the goal of nurturing our children's goals and passions, because we know that that's the best method to help them have success overall. If you're nurturing your teens' passions and goals, it helps build self-esteem, it builds self-confidence, it gives them skills that they can carry on for the rest of their lives. And so self-confidence and self-esteem is just as important as chemistry and mathematics and everything. We want to create a home experience that our children, when they get to the other end and we're launching them to adulthood, that they are very self-confident and they can pivot and do whatever they want to do as adults. And so I would like to introduce to you the concept of the U.S. High School Diploma Pathway as a way for you to nurture your teens' passions and goals and document it in a way that the universities, especially in the UK, can see what type of education has happened in your home. And we do that through the United States High School Diploma. And so I'm going to be breaking down this pathway a little bit for you. I'm giving you the crash course. They gave me 10 minutes to talk to you guys. So I'm giving you the crash course so you understand the big picture of what you're hoping to do when you're choosing this pathway. And so the US high school diploma pathway usually is completed over 4 years, typically between the ages of 14 and 18, and it's considered a liberal arts education. So that's the general overview of the time period of when this is happening. Now, how does this work? There's actually stages in this pathway, and it starts off with graduation requirements. And then if you're in this Facebook group, you've been hearing people talk about graduation requirements. There's a lot of different opinions about graduation requirements. So what I want you to understand is that graduation requirements is that somebody has set up a rubrics of what is going to be required of their students in order to earn that diploma. Now, here in the United States, and this is why it's confusing for a lot of people, is that each state in the United States have their own requirements. And then within each state, each school gets to add to those minimums. So a state has a minimum of requirements, and then each school adds to those requirements. And so, for instance, here within just a 10-minute drive from my house, I have a public school that says in order to earn your high school diploma, you have to have 22 credits. Now, another public school in the same area, it says that you have to have 25 credits. And then we have a private school in our area that says you have to have 28. It doesn't matter as long as they meet the minimum requirement for the state. But the public schools and the private schools and home educators get to decide what those graduation requirements are. And so hopefully, keeping that in mind as we're continuing this conversation, you'll see how that plays into what we're talking about with these graduation, like what are graduation requirements? Well, graduation requirements are built on a measuring system called credits. Credits is just a way of measuring how much time or exposure a child has had in a certain topic. And then a diploma is actually awarded at the very end. So that is the 3 steps that I'd like for you to keep in mind as we're having this conversation about this US high school diploma pathway. Now, this is all those credits are gathered together into what some of you have already heard about is a high school transcript. And I want you to think of the high school transcript as your CV or an educational resume. It is a document that you gather all the information of all the different ways that education has happened in your home. And you create this document. When you're applying to university, this is what you would upload into the UCAS. This is what the universities is looking for. They're not looking for necessarily the diploma. They want to see this document right here. This is your educational resume. And it can be done different ways. This is just an example of one way that Homeschool Directive does this transcript. It's broken up into categories under educational branches, but I want you to kind of look over to the screen over here where my cursor is. It also includes where you can put any test scores. In your cases, GCS scores would be, if you chose to do them, would be there. If you chose to do any other standardized testing, if you chose to do APs, there's a place to gather that information there. Also, you'll want to put things on your transcript, like if they have a black belt or if they volunteered at an animal rescue for 4 years, you'll want to put those type of things onto the transcript. And that's why this document becomes very, very important. Now, the question is like, okay, Michele, but how do I know how much a course gets, how many credits they get? And how does all of that work? And so that's what I want to talk to you about next, is what is a credit? A credit is actually a process. So it starts with the educational branch, and then it's based on a subject, and then there's a course that is designed around that topic. And I'm going to explain it a little bit more here in this next slide, in a couple of more slides, so you can see this big picture. So like I said, the first part is the educational branches. This is what the graduation requirements are set on. So a school might say you have to have 4 credits in language arts. You have to have 4 credits in mathematics, and so on. And the school gets to decide those numbers. In your case, as a home educator, you can decide, okay, we want 4 credits in language arts, we want 2 credits in math, and so on. Think about graduation requirements as that big picture of what type of student that you want your child to be when they leave your home. Now, underneath the educational branches is the subjects. Now, this screen that you're seeing right now is just a sample, but it helps you start seeing when you hear people talking about different coursework and requirements. It helps you to see that the big picture is the educational branches across the top, and then the subjects below them. Now, just looking at language arts, you can see it doesn't have poetry, it doesn't have graphic novels, it doesn't have writing copy or Facebook ads. Like, it doesn't have everything listed there. Actually, I sat down one day trying to see, like, how many courses is there possible. I stopped after 200 different coursework. I mean, social science alone can have over 200 different topics. So sometimes the schools, the graduation requirements can look different for each home because they're meeting this graduation requirement, which is the big language arts, mathematics, physical science, social science, physical education electives. But yet in one home, they might be focused on really heavy into the science, where another home might be focused really heavy into the social science. And so it gives this freedom to be able to guide your home education tailored to your children's goals and interest. So here's an example. Like I was just saying, you have the big picture, which is social science. In this case, we're choosing history for that graduation requirement to be met. So the credit is going to be given in social science. The topic is going to be history, but what kind of history? There's so many different history courses out there. In this case, world history, and it's worth 1 credit. You could do a different social science on history, and it could be British history, and it could be worth half a credit. It's about the amount of time and exposure that you're working in this bottom tier here of the coursework. So the credit is based on these 3 things right here. Excuse me. Now with Homeschool Directive, and as home educators, our goal should be to think about our children's passions and goals. If we're leaning more towards child direct learning, like, we start there when we're thinking about how we're going to facilitate this high school experience for our children. And then we start fitting those graduation requirements into those passions and goals. And then we create coursework to meet those goals. And that's a special thing that I think about using the high school diploma the route to this pathway, is that you have a little bit more freedom versus just doing the exams, where you have these set of exams and you have to do them. And that this allows a little bit more freedom to still do alternative education and do education in your home that the way that you want to. So you can give credits for anything that you're doing in your home. You just have to decide how they fit into your graduation requirements and your coursework. So as I said, I'm giving you this crash course into the homeschool high school pathway. And it does take a little bit of extra time, especially if you're doing more child-led education and you're creating your coursework around your kids' goals. and their interest, it does take a little bit more time from you as the parent on the upfront, because you're not just, getting a coursework to do this GCSE. You're not buying a box curriculum and doing it in your home. But the beautiful thing about this upfront work and thinking this all through is that you get 100% buy-in from your teens. Like if you're basing things around what their interests are and what they like to talk about, and all of these different things that make them who they are. Of course, the student is going to want to do language arts now, if the topic is all around the things that they want to talk about. Now, I understand with the graduation requirements, sometimes they're not thrilled about doing mathematics. So we're encouraging them to see why it's so important to them because of their future goals. So when you choose this method of using the high school transcript diploma pathway, you are giving yourself the opportunity to really cultivate self-confidence in your teens. You're honoring them as individuals. So I always say I have 8 children that I graduated from my homeschool academy, but they all did it differently. And we really tried to respect who they were as individual. And we worked on the skills that they needed to launch into adulthood. And you get to do that with this method. And then because of this, it's launching them into their future with success. So that is the crash course of the Homeschool High School Diploma. And I do offer free consultation. I know we're offering Q&A at the end of this presentation. But my goal with this short crash course talk is to encourage you as home educators to think about using the US transcript method. Either you do it on your own or that you do it through Homeschool Directive, but think about this as a part of your educational plan with your end goals in mind. Like, what kind of student do I want to launch into adulthood? And think about it as a viable possibility for your home. Did I make it? Did I do my 10 minutes?
Thanks. That's great. No, that's really good. Slides really helpful. Thank you. Okay.
Thank you, everyone.
I'm sure there's lots of questions, but yeah, we'll take those. Okay, so Kat is now from Dreaming Spires, is now going to tell us a bit about Dreaming Spires.
Yes, well, I am a bit of a storyteller, so we'll get there eventually. But yes, I'm Dr. Kat Patrick. I am the CEO of Dreaming Spires Home Learning. We've been providing courses for home educated teens basically all over the world, but they do tend to be in the UK, some in Europe, some in Africa, and some in America. But when I started doing Dreaming Spires back in 2012, I lived in Oxfordshire. I'd been living in Oxfordshire for about 20 years. And was a teacher in independent girls' schools and also an examiner for a number of exam boards in English. But I want to share, I don't have slides, but I have a few visual aids if I know how to share my screen. So I'm going to start off with, I don't really know how to do this actually. Everything is coming up unknown. How do I share my...
You put your cursor right down to the bottom. Do you see the line at the bottom and the share screen button in the middle? Or sometimes
I'm on share, but I don't know what I'm sharing.
I
have all these unknown Chrome things.
Kat, make your Zoom smaller.
Oh,
and you can see your screens. And then you're just picking one of those screens to pick from.
Right, so I don't use Zoom, everybody. We use something called Collaborate, which is a very integrated system. So this is all new to me. Yeah, I haven't really a clue.
If you click on the green button on the bottom,
share screen.
Yeah, and then lots of little a white thing comes up with lots of different screens, and then just click on one of those.
And they all just say Google Chrome unknown.
Oh, okay.
But there's only 3, and there's only 3 that I want to share. So let's see what happens.
Yeah, just do the.
Now it says that I have to grant access.
Hmm.
in my system preferences. This is going to be my 10 minutes dealing with.
Did you want to share a DS screen? I mean, I could just share it. I could find it and share it for you.
Well, I have my can I like take screenshots and share them? I know what I can do.
Well, Kat, if you give us the link, are you just wanting to do your homepage?
I know what I'm going to do.
You could send them on
I'm
a
going
local group.
to
And we
I'm
could
going to
share them.
send them on our group.
Yeah.
Yes. I want the Instagram one first when it comes up,
Okay, I'll try get it.
but I'm sharing that one now. Everyone's like, yeah, she's rubbish. She doesn't know what she's doing.
You're doing great.
It's
Kat.
not my system.
You're doing great.
I think everyone's
Okay, the
everyone's
Okay, I have
Instagram one.
I have a picture, kids. Yeah.
The Instagram one, which is several of the thumbnails of Instagram,
Okay, 1 second.
should be the middle one.
Instagram. Okay.
This is like exhibit A, my credentials as a home educator. I was picking up on what Michele was saying, as when your children are in primary school and maybe very early secondary. Yeah, if you can scroll up, keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going. Stop there. Go up a little bit. Go up more. Keep going, keep going. The one of me with the pink tank top.
This one here.
Stop there. Yeah. So what I wanted you to see is, because recently on Instagram, what I did was I had a little trip down memory lane. And so you can see some photos of my children at various field trips or projects we did. And so you can see that I have 4 children and that I home educated throughout my primary school. You can stop there. That's all I wanted. And the idea being that I've been on this same journey as most of you have been too, which is when your children are younger and you have a very experiential learning, and you go on all these field trips and you make these groups. I had co-ops for many years. In fact, the one with the children with their masks over their faces, that was a co-op that we did. And those were fantastic years without the pressure. And then once I started hitting secondary school, my eldest was 12. And I realized that we needed to start going down the pathway of the exams. I had 2 thoughts. One is, as an examiner for English language, I didn't really like the exam. I didn't really like the way that we graded the exams. And I thought a huge component of English language and writing and reading is writing and revising and revising and revising. In other words, rewriting and editing and thinking about it and editing. And if you have only 2 hours to do these, it's like 3 questions, but they've got 5 and 4 parts of them. And I'm thinking that that's just like a hothouse of a moment that doesn't really express English as a subject to me. So I didn't want to go down the exam route, kind of from principle, like this isn't really English. I felt the same way about sciences, revision books, and just going through and crashing all that information when I wanted to go out and do experiential things. I want to do nature study. I wanted to observe. We studied genetics through owning fish. And we did a lot of breeding of the fish. And we had these brown fish. We bought an albino and we bred them, and we bred them over a year until we bred so that there was only albinos. And then we said, what happens if we go back the other way? And so then we bred them again, an albino and a brown one, and then bred and bred and bred them until we went back to the brown ones. So I wanted that kind of studies for my children in secondary school. So I didn't like the exam system. It wasn't that they weren't capable, it's that I didn't believe it was the best education. And similar to that, having grown up in America myself and having been at liberal arts colleges myself, studying pre-medicine for 2.5 years, and then realizing, actually, I don't like this. I've really been inspired by my English and history teachers, and I love literary history. I was able to pivot more like 60% through my course of study and change my focus to literary history. And then I ended up doing graduate school at Durham University in England. Then I did a PhD, partly from Delaware, partly from Cambridge. And it was all in literary history. And I just feared the UK university system with its, well, the school system, that at GCSE you can have limitations. Let's say you're very good at foreign language, and your child, or you, if you were that age, and you want to do French and Spanish and German and Polish or something like that, but everything was timetabled at the same time, so you would have to pick a foreign language. And I just hated the boxes. And even more, I hated the boxes at A level, because if I'd gone the pre-med route in school, I would have done chemistry, biology, physics, and further maths, and I would have had to drop the English and drop the history at the age of 16. And I had this fear for my own children that it wasn't acknowledging that children grow and mature and change and discover things as they're growing older, instead of having to make a decision at 14 or 16 or 18. I didn't want them to have to make that decision. So that's kind of the background. If you can show the picture of the 4 children in my other link, which would be a Facebook link. These are my children now. The blondie one, the blondie girl in the middle, she just graduated from university, and the 2 on either side of her are at university. And then the one in the hat, I still have him for 2 more years in school, home educating school, but yes, in school. So when my daughter, the eldest one, was 12, and I wanted to go down the path of delight-directed learning, things that could be exploratory and stimulating and really in-depth learning, that was when I started Dreaming Spires home learning. So there is a link to the timetable that you could click on. So I started with 1 class of English. It actually was a version of studying for the English language exam in England. It's a roundabout way. We study Beowulf and Canterbury Tales and all kinds of things like that. But along the way, we do all the topics on the English language exam. We do summaries and letters and speeches and stories and descriptive pieces. All of those things are preparing for the UK exam if people want to. They're good things to learn, what I call transactional writing, where you have to think about your audience and your purpose and the style of writing it is. And then after I taught that one, I introduced another one in Renaissance Lit, where we did more literary studies, and I just built it up from there. And now there is a timetable link. Helen or Jen, whoever's doing it.
Jenni.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there you go. And I've built that up now, inviting other people to help me who are specialists in their subjects. And Helen's one of them, who does our business studies and our economics. But we've built it up now to all these numbers of courses, all of which are using really stimulating, interesting books. Like in biology, they read The Hot Zone about Ebola in order to look at microorganisms. And they're just courses that are there for the students. Each one would count as a high school credit, not simply a high school credit. We didn't talk about honors credits already, but they are quite intensive and stimulating courses beyond the norm. It's just not ticking a box. You're actually like learning Spanish in a way that not only can you write and take an exam if you want to, but you're having conversation, you're seeing it in context, and it's becoming a living language for you. So this is what we're offering for this next year. I'd be thrilled to pieces if the people in our audience right now, or who are watching back as a recording, to take 1, 2, 3 of our courses and start gathering some credits for your high school transcript. But in the meantime, even if you decide to go the exam route, if you abandon the transcript thing, if you are buying in all the way, all that's fantastic. But our courses are there to really inspire kids and give them agency in their studies. That's not a normal way of studying. So I think we're very special in what we do. And I actually know that a couple of people on here have students in our studies. So we're fantastic to see you here, and you might be able to chime up on the things that you've seen in your own children in terms of the maturity and the independence and the way that they do take control of their own learning. We are registering for these classes now. Our website will be available for you to look at. Probably we'll link it in the notes for this, and also I can link to it in the conversation in the chat box. But anyway, that's all I want to say. You can ask me questions about individual topics, how they do mesh with exams. Quite a number of them do mesh with exams if you want to go that route, but we like to think that they stand alone and actually are better and more enjoyable not taking the exam, but it is an option. So that's me. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so Jenny and I are going to talk about DUMOCs. So by means of introduction, so Jenny and I both in the UK, but we followed an American. We're not using Homeschool Directive, but we followed a different program. We've both got 7 children, and we've both been following this homeschool diploma, high school diploma, for about, both been doing it for about 15 years, something like that. No, probably longer, probably about 20 years. And we're now actually consultants for the homeschool program that we use. So we believe in the homeschool. We believe in the high school diploma, and that's a route that you know, we've really enjoyed taking with our own kids. So you can do the high school diploma. If you want to go to a British university, you might need something more. You don't always, it depends on which university you want to go to. So if you want to go to a prestigious British university, you're going to probably need AP exams, and that's what we found. So we were working with families that are using the program that we use, but they needed to get into British universities, or some of them wanted to get into British universities, and with my own children that was the case. So we had to find out about AP exams. So they're similar in standard to an A level, but you need them. You can use them for British universities. So we would, for the last couple of years, we've been doing them like on an ad hoc basis and finding out what families wanted and providing courses. And then just in the last year, we decided actually to make it a bit more organised and to offer more courses. So that's the kind of sort of background to kind of where we're, or who we are, and what kind of why we're doing this. Anything to add to that, Jenny?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny how Helen and I are quite similar in having 7 children each and similar ages, similar grades and everything. But it's great hearing Michele and Kat. Thank you for sharing those. It is something I'm sure we're all passionate about, but Helen and I, you know, starting DUMOCs learning and offering APs, which we'll talk about in a bit more depth, it's just something we've become more and more passionate about, because we see how this route for homeschooling in this country just seems to be such a better fit, or a more conducive fit to homeschooling than doing the exams that kids do in a school setting. It's such a, I don't know how many here are, in fact, it would be interesting to know if you want to put it in the chat, how many here have been homeschooling and for how long. Maybe there's some of you that are thinking about homeschooling and just looking into it all. Be interesting to know what your experience is, but we have found that, you know, all the years that I think it is nearly 20 years, Helen, just to make us feel old, you know, seeing friends and going through the school system ourselves, when you see the difference in home educating your own children and having that way of life rather than just doing school at home, and seeing how broad it can be, as Michele and Kat have explained, it's just, to me, it's just become a no-brainer that why would you do GCSEs and all those exams when you do have this option that's much more conducive to you know, nurturing your own children for them to become the best people that you want them to be, I suppose, and giving them everything that you can to do that. And we've just found this route has been such a good fit. So yeah, as Helen says, we realized there was a need for APs, and maybe we could help others as well as our own kids to do that. Helen, do you want to talk a bit more about what an AP actually is?
Yeah, so it's equivalent to an A-level. It's a 1-year course. That's the you know, the win-win situation. That A-levels are 2 years, and AP is 1 year. So it gives you more flexibility to be able to do what do other things that you want to do. So my son did 2 APs last year, 2 APs this year, but he also did a lot of other courses as well. I think if he'd done A-levels, then that would have been it. And really similar to what Kat said, really, that I just think it's just so sad that if you're a STEM kid, then you do A-levels and you do 3 A-levels in, you know, sort of maths, physics and chemistry, and that's it. You do no more English after 16. But the advantage of this, you know, with this system is that you just have a much broader education, which I mean, I just think it's so good. It's just so much better that you get a kid in between 16 and 18 that's done English and history and social sciences, and same the other way around. You know, you get kind of a very Englishy kid that actually gets to, you know, keep doing some sciences. Yeah, so for us it just seems like a win-win. So it's the College Board is they're like the AQA or the Edexcel. They're the people that administer it. It's a 2-hour exam. It happens in May. It just happens once a year. There's only one time a year that you can do it. Most of the papers are half multiple choice and half essay. You go to an exam centre and you do the exam at an exam centre. It's just one paper. Most A-levels have several papers, just one. And it can also be used as high school credit, and in the US it can also be used as college credit. So you don't have to do APs. I mean, you know, so you could do your high school diploma and no APs. But if you do want an A-level equivalent for, you know, apprenticeships, higher level apprenticeships, or universities, good universities, then you will need something like an AP. It's just me. So what you need to do is so to know what the university wants. The university will want your details of your high school diploma, and that's your GPA. So that was what Michelle was showing you. It may also need something called an SAT, which is an English and maths exam, which is you do at the local kind of posh independent school will usually be offering it. So yeah, it's an English and maths exam. You might need APs. The ACT you might just see, I'm just telling you that because you might see that written somewhere as well, which is similar to the SAT. So some universities you need all of those things. Some universities just APs are okay. Some universities you're going to want an AP and a high school diploma. You know, it just varies. So you need to look at the university, and we're going to look at a few in a minute. So you need to look at the university and see what they want. So there's variation between the universities, between what they want. It's not consistent. So you can't think, well, I'm just going to do this and, you know, that's going to be okay. But if you want to go to Sheffield University, then you could certainly look and see what Sheffield want. So this is Southampton University. So you look at the international, you go to Southampton website, you look at international students, and then you look at USA, because you'd be going there as a UK student with US qualifications. So this is what Southampton wants. So Southampton want, you can read it there, they want 3 APs. The second thing there doesn't matter, it doesn't exist anymore, you can't do that anymore. So they want 3 APs and they want scores of 555. This is Cambridge, so they want 5 APs. This is kind of obviously the top. So there are a few courses and a few universities in the UK that want 5. It's usually 3 APs when they want APs. Nottingham, so they want, depending on the courses, they want between 3 APs or 4s, or they want 5s.
And it's scored from 5 to 5.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, sorry. You should say that. Yeah, 5's the highest. And this is Reading. So Reading specify they want a high school diploma and they want AP grades. It's just a selection. I just kind of picked. And this was just an example of one that was just much more flexible. So there's certainly a lot of universities. So obviously, someone like Nottingham Trent is not as academic, perhaps, a university. and so their requirements are lower. You know, perhaps you could go to Nottingham-Trent without having AP exams. And this is so these are the courses that we're offering. Thanks to you, Jenny.
Yeah, so we the last year or two we have had a minimal amount of courses, but this coming school year we're offering this list so far, and they are all live Zoom classes every week with some really great teachers that we've got lined up. There's short SAT grammar classes, which are, because the SAT is 3 times a year, so there'll be short courses for those before each one. There's also a random IGCSE maths that I know still some people want to get one of those, can be used as high school credit as well. And we're also offering enrichment classes I'll talk about in a minute. So yeah, the AP classes are live Zoom classes. You can come across other AP courses that are maybe recorded. We are insisting that we always have live classes. And here's a short list just to, you can scan through if you need to know the more details. We really wanted to have contact with the teacher and the parent, having you know, reports every 10 weeks. That's what's included in the AP classes. We've just putting together some enrichment courses that also could be used on your high school transcript. We've got a debate club, a Lord of the Rings class, a chess club, and an practical icon painting class. Most of those are 15 weeks. The icon one is just 10. And yeah, the IGCSE, which seems random, but there seems to be a need still for that. And as I say, can be used on your high school transcript. There's just the list of the pricing to give you an idea of how it goes. Everything's on the website if anybody wants to take a look. A few questions. Well, maybe we should just open to questions. Mm-hmm. If anybody has anything there that I need to go through. We are AP, the APs are approved by the College Board. The courses are. There are ways of earning discounts by getting groups of people together like this one, and getting a discount off your own courses. And maybe we should be just open to any questions about anything at this point. If you want to put them in the chat, you can type them. If you want to raise your hand, perhaps if it's easier just to talk. Did I miss anything out, Helen? Was that?
That's good. We've
got quite a lot of people, so I think maybe questions in the chat box or raise your hand might be the easiest.
And you can turn off your camera if you don't want anybody to see you. Just turn off your camera and ask your question if that's easier.
I wondered about saying a little bit something more about SAT and ACT, because I'm not, I know what those things is. I'm not entirely sure that people are that aware of what an SAT stroke ACT are, especially because SAT is an acronym in Britain for those SATs, which tend to be the exams for younger children, like in year 5 or whatever, year 6, and then in middle school as well. And essentially, the SAT is usually like a morning exam, sort of 3 hours in the morning, and it's entirely multiple choice. You can study for it with Khan Academy for free, and it will give you the kinds of questions that you can practice, and you can do practice exams with them at Khan Academy, because it's all like computerized. They'll mark it, And after they mark it, it will also learn what your child needs more practice with. And so then you can practice some more of those same kind of questions. And in the main, it is focusing on maths and, well, numeracy and literacy. Let me just say it that way. And because the US scope and sequence of maths is different from the UK, it's very, I think it's kind of awkward and unusual for UK students to kind of tackle it because, as I say, they study things more separate, like they do algebra 1, then they do algebra 2, then they do geometry, usually, and then the students will take the SAT, which is a national exam. But my children didn't do the American system. They didn't really do the British system either, but their maths was kind of a jumble, but they were able to use the free course to study on Khan Academy. And one of them did quite well. Another one was during COVID, so they didn't have the exams. And then my youngest, I've actually put in the Crammer course for SAT maths with Domox. So there are different options for studying for the SAT. And like Jen said, they take place usually 3 times a year. They're just a Saturday morning and they cost about £100, I think. So if you're comparing that to GCSE, which even the English language paper is 2 papers a week apart or a few days apart, that you might have to travel quite a long way to get to, and you're constantly toing and froing for the GCSEs. It seems to me the SAT is much easier to access. That's all I
And can
wanted
I
to
just
say.
bring up the purpose behind the SAT and why the College Board here in the United States created it to begin with? Because unlike the UK system where you have these standardized GCSEs, these exams, they had to create a test that the universities could do a quick evaluation of the students, because every school, every state has different graduation requirements. They have different grade point averages. And so I'm just bringing this up to you as a way to see, like, there is no right or way answer to graduation requirements and all of those. That's why the SAT in the United States was created, was so the university could take a student, everybody takes the same standardized test, which the SAT is, or the ACT, and now they have a quick way to assess that student. So that's why that test was created. It was because we have all these different graduation requirements, and an A at one school might be worth 4.0 and another school might be worth 3.75. So that's why that test was created. Do you want me to pick up on what to do to prepare a student for the between 11 and 14? Would you guys like me to take that question?
Yeah.
Sure, Michelle,
So I think it's really important to think about the educational steps, like what are we doing with our kids and how are we moving them forward? We're always supposed to be moving our kids forward. So kind of think of that 11 to 14 as practice for high school. High school years are practice for life after university, or life after high school, either be it university or jobs. So what you could be doing, instead of being afraid of what's ahead, is start implementing a little bit more responsibility. Maybe you would give your children a deadline where you've never given them a deadline before. Or maybe you're asking them to write a paper and edit it for themselves for the first time in 8th grade without giving it to you first to edit it. So you're just kind of working on these skills that you're already doing in their house, in your home, and then just starting handing over a little bit more responsibility on their end. And you're preparing them for when they go into high school, as they get older and they're having to navigate having a job or really wanting to deep dive into their special interest. And so that's what your best bet to do between 11 and 14 is really hone in onto what their interests are. You know, there's so much drama. I always started my homeschool high school workshops as the hardest thing about high school is getting through middle school. Right? I bet all these moms here would agree. There's so much hormones going on. There's growth spurts, there's testosterone. And so it's really important to take that 11 to 14 years and just allow the children to mature. I have some kids that matured really quickly by the time they were 12, and I took some that took a little bit longer. And so just kind of take that middle school with kid gloves, and you're kind of a fishing pole, you're taking them back, pushing them out into the world a little bit more and then reeling them back in and working on skills and different things like that. So that's my take on middle school. I think it can be done differently for each child. But again, the goal is to prepare them for the rigors that high school will require of them. And in high school is preparing them for the rigors that the university will prepare them for.
I think you need to, so the question about SAT and AP qualifications, I think, and the same with universities, I think it often requires a conversation. So, I mean, it's very anecdotal. I can give my own daughter, I've got a daughter who's now a midwife. So she applied to British universities. She got 5 rejections, and she went through the kind of you then have an extra chance, she got another rejection. Then I stepped in, spoke to the university, said, why is she getting all these rejections? And he said, she hasn't got the qualifications. I said, no, she has got the qualifications. So I said, well, you said that you've got to have this, and she's got this, and she's got, more than enough qualifications. And it was just like it was like she went in the kind of UK pile, but with kind of US qualifications, and no one kind of knew what she had. But as soon as I explained what she had, they were like, oh yeah, and they gave her a place, and she went and, is now a midwife. So, and I think that's what we've heard from other people. So we know about people that have gone to college, and they've been told you need GCSE in maths and English. And they're saying, no, I've got this. I've got an SAT, I've got APs perhaps, I've got this high school diploma. This high school diploma is equivalent to 5 GCSEs. And they're saying, no. And for some of them, they've had like a kind of back and forth, it's taken a couple of weeks, they've gone and checked things out. But then it is okay. And this, this is new. So I think it wouldn't be truthful to say you're not going to have any problems. Because I think that you might have to have a conversation. You're going to have to phone up the university and say, here's me, I've got these qualifications, they're unusual qualifications, I'm coming here. But I think when people have done that, it's been very, very positive. But it's not, you're not going there with orthodox qualifications. And the same, I think, when you're applying for colleges, you are going to have perhaps a conversation to say, I've got this qualification. People are going to say, what is that? They're not going to know what it is. Why should they know what it is? I haven't heard about anyone that it's continued to be a problem, but it is sometimes, it requires a conversation.
I think it's the same thing, like here in the United States, it was different between my oldest daughter, who's in her, late 30s, when she was the first home educated child to go to the university. Mm-hmm. It's completely different now with my last student here. I think that's what you're going to be seeing in the UK, is the universities are already starting to put more information about home education on their websites, and they already take the transcript. And so I think you just need to be really bold. Like, this is alternative education. This is how we did it in our home. This is how we documented it. And like Helen is saying, when you're really confident about that and you're talking to the university and you can answer their questions using the language that they're used to, it puts you at an advantage when you're in those conversations, even having your students have those conversations and being able to explain how education happened in their home. You're going to see that as your kids get older, the conversation is going to get easier and easier. For what's happening in the UK right now is that in 10 years, it's not going to look the same way that it does right now. It's going to be easier. It's just going to have to, because it's exploding. Like, home education is a thing now because of COVID and because people are choosing alternative education. So it's very exciting what's happening here. And you guys, and I'm the Midwest, so you guys get to be able to foster this movement, and it's going to be easier for your younger children as you're going through this, and just being really confident that what you're doing is the best for them, and be confident in the transcripts that presenting to the universities.
I'm just gonna, if the person with their hand raised could
Sure.
ask the question, that would be great.
Yes, sorry, I couldn't come on camera. It's Helen here. I just wanted to ask a quick question with regards to a mix of qualifications. So, for example, basically, a child who has followed a US high school diploma, but then decided to validate that with A levels rather than doing APs. Have you encountered this in your experience? Particularly, Helen seems to have talked to some of the universities where you've seen a mixture of qualifications, and how would universities react to that?
I think they'll be fine with it. I mean, you know, I think if you've got a high school diploma and then then A levels, I mean, that'd be fine, you know, because the high school diploma is equivalent to 5 GCSEs. So
would they still understand? Would that lead to the misunderstanding, or the fact that they have the A levels?
I would phone them up, you know, so I'd go and see them. You know, my son is now in his first year at Sheffield, and we actually went there, you know, my husband, and they were very, you know, they were fine about us seeing them. So my husband went there with him. He explained what qualifications he's got, and they gave him a place immediately. You know, what they did actually say to him was, though, that they gave him a place immediately, but they said that when he does apply, it was almost like they expected there to be a problem in the kind of application process. And they said to him, they kind of basically gave them their kind of contact details and said, if you apply, like, contact me if there's any problems. And there were problems. So he applied and he got rejected. So then he got this email from this person, and, you know, it was all sorted out. But so I would contact the universities. And I think it's really true what Michele said. You know, we're pioneers. You know, people are doing this, you know, for the first time. Some people, I think it's increasing, and there are more and more stories of people, you know, successfully doing it. But as Michele said, you know, it is fairly new, you know. So I think, so if your son's applying for university, he's applying for Cardiff, for example, I would contact Cardiff and say, here's me, I'm applying, you know, can I come and meet you?
You would actually contact them before the application?
Yeah. Why not? I mean, you know,
As
very
a
good.
Parent or as a student? As a parent?
Well, yeah, no, as a student. So, I mean, you know, get him to contact them. But yeah, I would go and talk to them, go and see them. You know, I mean, that's only going to be good for your application.
Really?
So yeah, I would. Yeah, you've got nothing to lose, and they're very good. You know, they're very keen to meet people. They're very positive about homeschoolers. I think people we've had experience of, you know, they've been really, really positive about homeschoolers. I think they see them as different, and you know, they're keen to have homeschoolers.
Mm-hmm.
So you really have to be encouraged that they're putting it on, the universities are addressing it on their websites. They're telling you exactly how to get into their university. So just that should be, if you're going to go the transcript route, that should be your marching orders. Like, oh, the university, this is not new. They've been taking transcripts for a very long time. What's different for them is that UK parents are starting to use them, right? And so it's new for UK parents, but it's not new for the universities. They've been seeing these because they've been accepting international students for a very long time. And so but it's not new to them. So they're gonna totally be able to have a conversation with you about the transcript. It's being confident in your transcript and understanding why you're doing what you're doing is what the ultimate goal is when you're taking on that pathway.
Thank you.
We just passed the hour time, folks, but I just wanted to say, if anybody's, you know, wants to be connected with any of us here, us 3 or 4, please put your email in the chat box, and we can, you know, we can send you any further information, or you can contact us also. But if you're happy to be contacted by us, we have a newsletter coming up if you want to just be kept in the loop. Please share your email, and maybe Michele and Kat, you could put your web or your email, or if anybody wants to contact us.
Yeah, and I just wanted to touch on 2 quick questions that I see in the thread.
Yeah, if we could just finish
high
those
school
questions, I
credit,
was thinking.
Yeah, can a high school credit be earned before 14? Yes, you can earn a high school credit at any time. And then I think is it always equivalent to 5 GCSEs? No. So there isn't a standard yet, which I think is important to know that.
Yeah, they'll only, you can, I forget, Helen, what's it called? You can get it transferred to, if you've got a high school diploma and you want to make it look like GCSEs, you can get an official transfer of what it means, but they'll only say it's 5 GCSEs equivalent, even if it's such an extensive transcript that it's obviously way, way beyond that. They can only give it the equivalent of what kind of the lowest level high school diploma would be, right? If I explained that correctly.
Mm.
Yeah.
So
again, I think it's more important to look at what the if you're thinking university or if you're thinking apprenticeship, it's more important to see what they're asking than to even worry about how many GCSEs. Because like you said, if you're applying for Oxford, it's totally different than if you're applying to a different school. And so that's your goals, and that's where you should be putting your focus in. And then as far as how long it takes you to put a transcript and how daunting, I see a lot of comments that kind of the same thing, is that it's a documentation that's going to take some time to learn how to do that. That's where Homeschool Directive comes into play. You don't have to do all that research and do all of that guessing. You can just kind of dive into it and focus more on the subjects, the fun part, you know, with Dreaming Spires and Delmox. Like, you get to do all of that without having to worry about how does this course show up and where does it fit and how many credits. Like, that's why Homeschool Directive was designed to help you do what you're supposed to be doing, and that's facilitating the best education you can in your home without being bogged down.
Okay, right, should we conclude? Okay, so thank you very much for coming, everyone.
Okay,
and,
thanks
we appreciate it.
everyone.
Yeah, thank you.